So thank you for joining us today. Again, my name is Jessica Reynolds. I'm the Director of the Office of Downtown Development at the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. And with me today, I have my awesome colleague, Tara Bradshaw, who is our Economic Development Specialist. And today we are going to be bringing yes, thank you, Tara. And today we're going to be bringing you this presentation about COVID-19 and its impact on Main Street. So a couple things before we get started. Hi to our folks that are not from Georgia today. So if we have some Alabama folks on the phone, some North Carolina folks on the phone, some South Carolina folks joining us today, we have worked with our fellow state coordinators to be able to offer this to our southern Main Street regions. So hi guys, we're happy to have you, excited, to let y'all participate and have you be a part of what we're doing. The way that these work is that we like to save Q&A for the very end because a lot of times questions will be answered throughout the process. But if you come up with something and we don't address it and we don't get to your question, you can always shoot us an email. We'd be more than happy to answer you and respond to you one-on-one. The other thing to know is that we have, if you look on your control panel and you go down to handouts, we actually have provided you guys already with a copy of this webinar in PDF format. You're going to see a lot of links throughout our presentation, and we've already linked to stuff. So that PDF has links embedded in it to give you shortcuts. So you don't have to go digging for all the information, and you don't have to try and write down, the addresses and stuff like that to find everything again. So again, we've tried to make this as user-friendly as possible. And we will be uploading a copy of this to our YouTube channel for later viewing, sharing, and downloading. So with that being said, we're going to kick it off. So let me see. Okay, so today we have our stuff broken up into 4 different sections. The first section, we're going to talk about communications and resources. The second section, we're going to talk about the municipal impact. The third section, we're going to talk about the Main Street impact. And the fourth section, we're going to talk about small business impact and resources. So I'm one of those people that likes to talk about the realities that we're dealing with, but in a way that doesn't scare everybody and make you hyperventilate. So that's why there's cute puppies on the screen. If at any point you get stressed in my next little tangent that I'm going to go down, you just look at these cute puppies and imagine holding or kissing or cuddling one of them. So with that being said, I want to be as realistic with you as possible. We are in uncertain times and heading towards an uncertain future. The only thing guaranteed right now is that everything is going to change. And when I mean everything is going to change and continue to evolve. And that's okay. The reality is that as Main Street programs and as a Main Street community, we are already at more of an advantage than anybody else out there because we have an incredible network both in the state and in the nation to be able to tap into. So I can tell you that while we're unfortunately going to lose small businesses, we are unfortunately going to have people who are losing their jobs, and that this is going to impact all of us, literally all of us, on some level, that I truly do believe that our Main Street communities are better positioned, better resourced, and are going to be in a position to help our small businesses recover quicker, faster, and be stronger than communities without a Main Street program. I truly, truly believe that. And the best thing about the Main Street network is that you're not in this alone. Whereas if you're a community that doesn't have a Main Street program that is totally doing this just on your own and trying to feel your way through it, you may have that feeling that you're alone and that you're alone in the recovery and that you're trying to make it all up and figure it all out. But I will say that's the best part about being a Main Streeter is that we're in this together. So we're going to have some tough realities that we talk about throughout the presentation. But again, I think we as state coordinators, as Main Street program representatives, as local Main Street employees will be able to help our communities through this and hopefully come out for the better. So one of the things I first want to talk about with communication, I'm not going to sit here and talk about how to create a crisis communication plan. We've got another webinar for that. You can check it out on our YouTube channel. This is not going to be like a step-by-step guide or resource that I'm going to go through, but I want to point you to some resources that are available if you need more help with how to communicate, what to communicate, where to communicate, how you should be communicating. The CDC, Centers for Disease Control, have developed an incredible website with a ton of resources, and they have a whole section that is just for communicators on getting your community ready and talking about how to prepare, and also like once it's real and already happening, which we're already in the real and happening phase, how to continue that dialogue and things that you should be doing. Incredible resource. I think it's definitely worth looking at just to even double check that you're doing what you need to be doing. Again, that PDF that we're giving you in the handouts, all of these are clickable links, and we'll take you to that resource directly. And we will make sure that this is also included on our YouTube channel with clickable links as well. Another great resource is ready.gov, and they talk about, again, a communications plan, how to share that plan, implementation of that plan, and how to deal with crisis management. So again, I'm not going to go through, the next hour and talking about step-by-step of how to do that. There are resources out there. This is all about getting you the resources you need and putting you in touch with that. One of the things I do want to talk about, though, today are some best practices that we've seen around the state of Georgia. I will say that I'm also not going to focus on the stuff that we've seen, a crazy amount of a lot of people doing, which is like using social media to talk about, who's open and who's not open, or creating a website that, it's like, oh, these are our businesses opening, this is what they're serving, and these are their hours, and, this is to go delivers and stuff like that. Again, I want to focus on the different stuff that maybe you haven't been doing, or maybe that you could be doing. So one of our Georgia Main Street communities, the City of Rome, they're a Great American Main Street winner. They're also a GEMS community, which stands for Georgia's Exceptional Main Street. So they're ones that are really going above and beyond. Again, some people may have this, but some people may not. They are utilizing social media, Facebook, and they have a private Facebook group for their businesses specifically. So I know in Georgia that we have probably a decent amount of people that are utilizing this resource, but if you don't have this already, it is a great opportunity to put something like this into place now. It costs nothing for you. And it's one of those things that if you implement it at any other time, you may not get the participation level that you're looking for. But right now, considering the crisis situation we're in, people will be driven there because all they want is information. They want to know what's happening in real time right now. So if you don't have something like this in existence, now is the time to create and share that. And if you have something, now is to make sure that the time to make sure you're maximizing your impact with that you're communicating regularly and often with these businesses and encouraging them to share and interact in real time. The city of Macon, a bigger community here in Georgia, their program has been sending out daily emails to their business owners with updates and resources. So they have a daily email that goes out specifically to the businesses within the district that's like, this is what has happened in the past 24 hours, this is how it's impacting you, and these are the resources available. Because the reality is that this information is changing and coming to us in real time and is evolving very, very quickly. So we need to be on top of that and constantly communicating. The other thing that they're doing now in Georgia, about, I think it was 85% of our programs are actually housed in local government, meaning that the Main Street manager is an employee of the city or the county. But in Macon, they are actually housed under a nonprofit organization called Newtown Macon. So they are a separate entity from the consolidated government that is there. And so what they have been doing is working with the city and county government to coordinate their message and the delivery of that message. So before anything goes out, they work with the Macon Bibb County's communications team to make sure that everything is in the same tone, that the information is factual and correct. And that they're, delivering the same message. And so I think that's one of those things. This is a good best practice for any Main Street program anywhere, regardless whether you're housed in the city or outside of the city. Main Street tends to be the front line that people engage with first. we're a little bit more accessible than maybe just like city government. We feel like we're a little more tangible because we're in the communities. We are engaging with the communities regularly, so people look to us. So I will say keep communication open, free, but also make sure that you're on message with your partners and also your municipal government. And then the city of Dublin has adopted, a line that they've been using in a lot of their social media and in the message that they're delivering, which is more than a hashtag. So I call it the more than a hashtag campaign. But the idea behind this is that you're going to see a lot of people say, shop small safely, or hashtag shop small, or hashtag support small business, or whatever the trendy thing is at the moment. But the reality is that we have to have more than a social impact. We have to have an economical impact right now. And so how do we translate that social impact to an economical impact? And that's where their more than a hashtag campaign is coming in and trying to make people aware that, hey, this business is opening and this is important, but remember that your impact is more than a hashtag. Again, really just trying to drive home the reality of the situation we're in. And then if you're looking for a little bit of levity and you want to have a little bit of fun and take a break from all the crazy seriousness that is out there, the city of Douglasville has done something really cute that I found out about this morning. They had a whole little thing on social media that they started this week that people have really been building off of, that is, tell me what's happening in your house with your coworkers. And so you take the concept of, I'm at home with my mom or my dad or my kids or my grandparents or the cat or the dog, and instead of saying what's happening in your household, like my kids are doing this or my dog is doing this or my cat is doing this, you would insert my coworker is. So for example, if you're me, Jessica, and you were working from home on Monday, I would have said, my coworker is snoring so loudly next to me that I can barely focus on what I'm doing. And that is, my dog was like passed out asleep next to me and was just snoring away. And I was like, must be a nice life right now. But again, people were having a lot of fun with it. My coworkers have been up since 4:30 a.m. running around the house half naked and screaming, this is going to be a long couple of weeks, but again, just a way to engage and interact with folks, but have a little bit of fun and lighten it a little bit. I think a lot of what we deliver content wise, communication wise in the next couple of months is going to be so serious in tone and nature, but it is kind of nice to just lighten the load a little bit every now and then. Next, National Main Street Center. So again, as Main Street communities, we're all connected to and part of the National Main Street Center. They have created a web page that focuses on resources. I've linked to it right here below. But one of the things that I will say is that they have developed a set of social media graphics that you can use on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, about, shopping local and spending local safely is one of their things. So support local safely. And again, you can see an example of one of their graphics here on the left. But again, you don't have to create something from scratch. There are resources out there for you. And they've got some good best case, what people are sharing online and in social context that you can tap into, and kind of R&D, which for us in Georgia means rip off and duplicate. We're all about it. Another resource that I think can be great in helping you with your communication is a company called Independent We Stand. And you see up here some of the graphics that they already have developed, and they have a whole complete graphics package that you can just download and use as you want. So I like this one. You can still support local. That's again driving home the message. But they are just an independent organization that supports small businesses and is rolling out resources, especially like in the context of social media, for people to be able to help communicate their message. This is a clickable link here. So you can actually click on this and it will take you to a resource that they've created. You see it says Small Businesses Coping with Coronavirus Outbreak. So it takes you directly to the page on their website that is targeted at coronavirus. Okay, municipal impact. I'm going to talk about how this is going to impact local governments, things that they need to know or be aware of, as well as resources and things that they can provide. So for communities that have applied for and received CDBG funds, which stands for Community Development Block Grant. HUD has released this CDBG eligible activities document, which I have linked to right here. And it's a quick guide of how CDBG funds can be repurposed to support small businesses and other things, build up community infrastructure and stuff during this crisis. So two of the sections that I pulled out specifically that will be here, if you go to this page up here, that you'll find on there, is two separate sections for small business development, providing assistance to private or for-profit entities to carry out economic development projects. And then the other one, provision of assistance with micro enterprises. And again, it kind of goes into like what that means, and can provide short-term working capital assistance to small businesses to enable retention of jobs held by low to moderate income persons. So there, from what I can tell and what I've heard from our team at DCA, there's a lot of flexibility that is being created. So when I talk to our folks at DCA, because I will tell you right now, straight up, I am not a CDBG expert in any way, shape, or form, but they're trying to share stuff with me in real time so we can share stuff with you, that there is about $6 million of existing funds that have not been spent by our programs who have applied for funding, and the awards can be altered to be able to serve this new purpose. So as that information becomes available, we will make sure to share that with you. But if you get a direct allocation of CDBG funds, if you're like an entitlement community, again, the idea behind this is creating flexibility so that you can repurpose these funds to serve a need here in our communities. Also, for the current application period has been extended for us. So if you're in Georgia, the current Community Development Block Grant application period the deadline has been extended till Friday, May 1st. So we've given everybody basically an extra month to apply for funding, knowing that things have changed and evolved and you may want to change the scope of your application. Applications must be received by May 1st. So that does not mean postmarked, it means received by. We will not be accepting hand delivery applications. Again, I think that's for pretty intuitive reasons. One, social distancing. Two, we're working on skeleton crews right now at DCA. So, I can't guarantee who's going to be there and when. So all applications must be mailed in. And for local governments with an FY 2019 audit due to the Georgia Department of Audits and Accounts, or a report of the local government finance that's due to us at DCA between March 31st and June 30th, our agencies are allowing a one-time 90-day extension that may be requested. So if you are a municipal government and you are turning in this paperwork, your audit or your government finance report, your local government finance reports, and you need an extension, you can have a one-time 90-day extension to submit to us that information. Again, we realize that this is a crisis situation and that people need more flexibility in meeting deadlines and, working with us. So we just want to make sure that everybody is aware of those flexibility, those flexible opportunities as we provide them. An update from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and regarding public hearings. So a lot of times when you guys are working through processes as local governments to make changes or to implement updates or things, HUD requires you to have some public hearings. We have heard from HUD that if a community is concerned about public health risks, that they may hold in-person hearings through virtual means. So basically, you can have virtual, public hearings as a way to engage with people in a safe way while still, providing access to information. So, the idea is that we don't want to put anybody in an unsafe situation. but we still want to be able to move processes forward and allow people to address questions in real time, with answers coming from these elected, representatives to attendees. So if they're going to do something virtual, it needs to be on a platform that's accessible by anybody, whether you have a computer or if you're just going to call in over a landline or a cell phone. You need to document who's participating, make sure that when answers are given, it's given to the entire group, so you can track the citizen participation. I will tell you from like the local municipal level, if you use something like GoToMeetings or GoToWebinar, it's one of the easiest platforms out there to kind of track who has questions and who's engaging. So again, HUD understands the existence of this crisis that we're in right now and how things are going to be changing, and they want to be as flexible as possible, while still being able to comply with the participation requirements. So I think that's just a good FYI that people need to know right now. So some best practices that we've seen from around, we've got, develop and implement a communications plan. Again, we've directed you to some resources if you don't have that already. We saw some cool stuff, like City of Canton sent out a really great email saying, hey, this is what's open, this is what isn't open, this is how you can renew your business license online, this is how you can pay your utility bill online, this is how you can pay parking citations or court fees online. We've seen municipal court officers providing like a one-stop shop number for if you have questions on upcoming court dates or any kind of process or procedure that's happening right now, because so much of the stuff is up in the air, that you can contact this number and reach out to this person. And then we've also seen cities set up dedicated lines to answer questions about what city operations are underway right now, as far as like, are you still collecting trash? Are you, is the park still open? Are you doing this event? Again, having a number that anybody can call into to like be able to just ask questions about city functionality at this time. So, you don't have to go through the whole, hey, if you want to speak to this person, press 1. If you want to speak to this person, press, like, nobody wants that right now in the world, right? We just want to be able to pick up the phone, call someone, and have someone answer our questions. And so that is what a lot of people are doing in order to help, reduce confusion, reduce the frustration, and to communicate that there is a plan. Half the battle is, not just having a plan, but knowing that there's a plan in place. And, a lot of that anxiety and fear comes from the unknown. And, I heard, I was watching the news this week, of course, like everybody else in the world, and Mayor Bill de Blasio from New York was on, and they were talking about, asking him, will you have to close the subway? And he said, well, we're not there right now. We'll address that when we get there. And, the news kept pushing and pushing, and they said, well, we just want to know that you have a plan. Is there a plan in place if you have to close the subway? And he said, yes, we have a plan. We have a plan. If we have to close the subway, we have policies and procedures that we would roll out. And, I think that really just reiterated that a lot of the times it's not us knowing when you're going to do something or how you're going to do it, but that you have a plan to do it. And so I would encourage people, if you don't have some of these plans in place for how you're going to do some of these things, to start talking about those contingencies now. So that way, if something happens or if you have to address something, you're better prepared for it. Some best practices that we've seen across the state, Macon, they have downtown parking meters. They've air quote bagged the meters, so that A, people don't have to pay for parking downtown, and B, people don't have to touch the meters. In Thomasville, Georgia, a more rural community in South Georgia, they have designated pickup zones for each of the blocks or areas of downtown, so that way they're not taking away from normal customer parking, but they have specific areas for people who are just picking up and dropping off stuff. And then from our neighbors to the north, in Oakland County, Michigan, which is its own coordinating program located outside the city of Detroit, they're diverting budgeted funds for non-matching grants to downtown organizations to create a pool of funds that can be used for efforts on the local level for promotions, mitigation, and business support in need. So again, I think the idea here, and we will touch base on this a little bit later in some of the presentation, is that what existing resources and funds do we have that we could say, okay, let's stop doing this and let's start doing this? How can we pool together our resources? How can we make them available? How can we support our downtown and our small businesses? And again, I know as a city, your job is to protect every citizen within the city and support every business as far as like, you have to look at it through that broad lens. But again, remember through Main Street, we're looking at how do we maintain what's happening within the downtown district. So again, having to keep that perspective in mind, understanding where the city's coming from during this process. Again, in New York City, they have some really cool things that they're doing to try and address, the loss of business. So the administration this week announced that a small business loan program that businesses with fewer than 100 employees could be eligible for an interest-free loan up to $75,000 as long as they can document a 25% loss in customer receipts because of the virus. It will be a 0% loan with a repayment term of 15 to 20 years. Again, obviously they're the city of New York, they can do a lot different stuff, but I would say that there's opportunities on the local level, whether it's with the municipal government or partnering with local banks or even the development authority or the Main Street program to come up with something similar to this. Maybe the dollar amount isn't the same, maybe it's different, but again, I think we can be creative when it comes to financing programs. And honestly, I truly believe that while there will be federal resources that come down to us and are available to us, the quickest way to recovery is going to happen on the local level. So in addition to that loan program that I talked about, for businesses with fewer than 5 employees, they will be able to apply for cash grants if they can prove a similar revenue loss. So again, taking the idea that a small business here is truly small, 5 employees or less, the idea is to get cash in people's hands quickly. And so they will allow those small businesses to use this cash grant to cover up to 40% of their payroll costs for the month related to the revenue decline. And the administration itself is, kind of averaging that would be about $6,000 per business. So again, the nice idea of taking this tiered approach, not everybody's going to need the same amount of help. And in some people that may be a smaller amount just to help them kind of get to the next period or the next point in time. But seeing what we have and what we can repurpose. So as municipal governments, if you are, we talked about earlier, collecting fees and licensing and renewing licenses online. Yeah, that's great. The problem right now is not, for some people, it's not the ability to renew your license online. It's your ability to pay for your license when you're looking at it from the small business perspective, right? Now, I get not every city has, payment and renewals online. And that's a whole different challenge on its own. But from the small business perspective, I'm not so worried about filling out the paperwork and making sure you have it. I'm worried about how am I going to pay that. So we're encouraging people that can be flexible to be flexible, whether that's 60 days or 90 days, deferring those renewal fees and licenses to just, again, allow people to keep that money for working capital. Versus, the local government that, that extra $250, or even if it was an alcohol license and it's $5,000, the city's probably not going to, live or die by that $5,000, but that business may live or die by that $5,000. Cities also have the ability to do a direct allocation of funds, whether it's to the Main Street program or the Development Authority or even a community foundation, to set up a low interest or no interest loan fund for programs. So that they can inject cash now into that business. So, there may be more red tape than desired at the city level if they were going to do something like that. But that's, where having the Development Authority or the Main Street program as a partner in this process can really help, untie their hands and make something happen quicker. And for cities that manage their own utilities, what we're recommending is consider giving extensions for those who would meet the lock-off list. So someone who would be locked off from local utilities or power or water or sewer, whatever it is, for an additional 30 to 60 days at least. and both on the business and residential side, because we realize that this is going to affect both the business and residents of the community. So now we're going to talk about the Main Street impact. Again, on this point of it, or this part of the presentation, I really want to focus on the organizational side of things and how this is going to affect you as an organization. Because I think from what I've seen, a lot of our programs are so focused on the small businesses right now, which is obviously great. I'm not knocking that at all. That's where our priorities and focus needs to be. But I want to make sure that we are resilient, and I want to make sure that we're around, because the thing is, if our programs go away, then that support goes away. So I need everybody to take, 30 minutes, an hour, and do a self-assessment check and check in with your program and see how things are going. So with our programs in Georgia, we know that the average amount of a Main Street budget is about $263,000. We have that statistical information that we monitor and look at. From that total $263,000, about $116 goes towards salaries. And if you look at this pie chart, this beautiful pie chart that I created here on the right-hand side, you'll see that for us, 30% of it comes from public funding, which would be city general funds, county funds, some kind of public entity providing, the traditional funding. And usually that goes towards the salaries and the rent and the training and that kind of stuff. But about 40% here comes from fundraising, sponsorships, and in-kind donations. And then we've got a mix of other things. We've got building rentals, we've got tax districts, whether it's a business improvement district or a business licensing fee, or a community improvement district or a tax allocation district, which in other states would be called tax increment financing, because, Georgia's different. We like to call stuff different things. But again, realizing where your money is coming from and how this is going to impact you. Again, if you are a program that collects hotel motel tax, if you get 100% of that or even a portion of that, that number is going to drop in the next few months at least, because people aren't traveling right now, right? So if they're not staying in hotels, you're not making hotel motel tax money, right? So that number is going to be affected. So it did some basic math over here on the left-hand side, and you'll see that I took that kind of 40% number and did it in two different ways. If you take 40% of just your overall Main Street budget on average, that would be about $105,000, which is a lot of money potentially that you could lose or be impacted by as a program. If you take out salaries and just look at that difference of 40% of that difference, it would be about $60,000, a little less, 58.5, right? So the idea is that our program financially could be bringing in a lot less money. And so I need you to be educated, informed, and to know what that impact is truly going to be. Again, this is just a little pie chart to show you how our programs are made up. Majority of them, 85%, they are employed by the city. We have several that are standalone nonprofits, and then some that are housed under the chamber. But so what can you do, or what do I need? What is Jessica today asking you to do as a Main Street program to prepare for this impact? So what I need you to do is to assess your program's current financial standing and be real with yourself. And this should start at the manager level first. How much money do you have? What is your budget? What is that impact going to look like? If you made no money this year from fundraising or events, what would that do to you as an organization? Would you be able to continue on? Would you go out of business? What's going to happen? Determine the amount of funding coming in over this calendar year that will be derived from events. So again, events, fundraisers, and sponsorships. So again, looking at not just what is happening in the next month or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, but I really need you to think more long-term, because the impact of this economically is going to be more long-term than just the next month or two. Realistically, we're going to feel this probably at least for the next 12 to 24 months, right? Because recovery doesn't happen that quickly. And the thing is, if we don't have small businesses making money, if we don't have larger businesses employing people and making money, those sponsorship dollars and those fundraising dollars, they go zoop and they dry up. So if you have an event where you're making $20,000 revenue and you have bringing in $10,000 in sponsorships on top of that, people don't have that kind of disposable income right now. people don't have that money to give because they're just trying to stay afloat or they're just trying to pay their employees. So I need you to be realistic with yourselves as far as like what is going to happen when this money is not as easily accessible. As a board, you need to have that conversation. If we didn't do these events, if we didn't have this revenue coming in, what would we cut? What could we cancel? Or what will we not be able to deliver on? Or what should we scale back on? And then the idea there too is how can we repurpose existing financial incentive programs to serve another need. So if we take our facade grant program, where it's a matching grant and it covers external stuff, which would be great if we had a disaster that was a hurricane and we were losing roofs and signs and damaging the front facade of a building. But when we have a virus that's keeping everybody away and just not bringing people out, we have to address stuff in a different way. So how could we repurpose it for micro loans or micro grants or no interest loans, to help support our businesses in the meantime? I know people are going to reach out to me and say, hey, do you have examples of this? No, folks, I don't have examples of this because it hasn't been done before because we haven't need to do it before. So, I would say it's like anything. You got to make it competitive, use your, best judgment, but that's also what your board is for, to help you think through this process. In Georgia, we have a lot of cities that use something like a boost program, which is like a micro loan program where people are not micro funding, not a loan, where people are paying into one big pot, and then people have the ability to access those funds and apply for those funds for certain things. I would say for those who are currently offering boost program dollars to small businesses, to consider what you would expand like as eligible costs. So I know like for the city of Milledgeville, they are very specific, like we don't pay salaries, we don't pay rent, we don't pay, utility bills. That may need to change right now. In a normal operating society, that may be fine. In the world we're living in today, maybe we need to be more flexible with that and allow more eligible costs to be covered. In Americas, Georgia, they have something that they work with Georgia Power to receive some funding that is a Turn the Lights On grant. And so it was designed to help businesses that are in existence convert to more cost efficient, lighting and electrical upgrades and stuff like that, or to help new businesses coming in be more green. But maybe that needs to be repurposed to be a Keep the Lights On program. And focus on how do we make sure that people are still able to pay their bills, right? Because I will tell you, we've talked with a lot of our partners at the power companies. Everybody's on board. Nobody wants to see small businesses leave, but the power companies do not have a specific plan right now, like an economic development plan to roll out to anybody. But it doesn't mean that they're not up for hearing the ideas that you can put forward to them to say, how can we help support our businesses? How can we help keep them? So I would say get creative, think outside the box, and think about the ask. Next, I want to move on to events. And so I really want to be realistic with you. This is the part where you're probably going to be like, I don't know about this, Jessica. And I'm going to be like, listen, been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of things. This is what I think. So first off, I would always say follow CDC guidelines. So currently the CDC is asking for folks to suspend all events over 50 people till May 1st. I will tell you, look longer than that. You don't have to do it right now, but be prepared to do it longer than that. And then specifically over the next 2 weeks, no more than 10 people together in any space at one time. Again, it is our job to keep calm, to deliver clear and concise information, to not panic the public, but we need to be realistic about the battle we're fighting. We're fighting an enemy that we cannot see, an enemy that we cannot quantify, and an enemy that, can pass amongst our friends and families without us even knowing it until someone gets sick. So it is our responsibility as Main Street Programs to make sure that we are not doing anything that is going to enable the spread of the disease or negatively impact our community, right? And that's going to be tough because we plan a lot of fun and great stuff, and we do a lot of fun and great stuff, especially in the spring because the weather's great and it's cooler and it's not 1,000 degrees outside, in South Georgia. But you know what? 2020 is going to be different. It's going to look different, and that's okay. The next thing is, they're saying, again, they're not looking super far out. I am telling you, you need to look further out. This is going to impact us a lot longer than just the next couple of weeks. We heard a presentation yesterday, and it was talking about that from in Wuhan, China, from when they first got a case to when they, got it under control was about 13 weeks. If we look 13 to 14 weeks out from right now, we're looking at the middle of June. I'm telling you guys that we're going to be impacted a lot longer than just the month of April. So I'm not saying you need to cancel things right now. It's too far in advance to truly know what's going to happen. But you need to be prepared with contingencies and alternative plans, whether that means you move a conference or an event till the fall. Maybe you don't do it this year. Like I said, the Kentucky Derby, things like that are, that's the beginning of May. They're already moving it to like October or something like that. The big Met Ball gala fundraiser that they do for the Met, it's on postponed indefinitely at the moment, so we need to look at either alternative dates or considering what you can do or raise online or neutralizing the risk with a great refund policy. The reality is too that when people don't know or understand what's going on with the markets and with the economy, people are not going to spend money. So that means people aren't going to commit to going places and doing things, which even if our event isn't for a while, you can't really, you're not going to be able to promote it right now because people got other stuff on their mind. They got other more important things. So again, I am really encouraging you to be proactive when it comes to addressing these things, and not be reactive. Do not wait to the last minute. Do not think that this can't happen to you. It will happen to all of us, even on the state level. Here at DCA with our Georgia Main Street program, we had a training scheduled in April. We've already moved it and postponed it till July. In the meantime, we are developing it as an online version because realistically, I don't know what it's going to look like in July. And I also know that maybe not everybody is going to be able to participate because the reality is we're going to all be catching up and getting back into the swing of other things. And I don't want people to, feel obligated to have to participate in person when they've got other stuff going on in their community. So we're in the process of developing that into an online version as well that will be accessible. So again, we have to just not think about what's happening right now. We also have to think about what the recovery is going to look like and what that impact is going to be on our needs as well as our assets. So again, I'm really just encouraging you not to panic, but to think far into the future and how this is going to impact you financially. Our top priority as an office, we talked about this yesterday with our other state coordinators when we were on the phone. I want you to understand that while, yes, supporting small businesses is important, our number one goal as an office is to support our local Main Street programs. We want to make sure that you keep your lights on and that you keep your jobs and you stay in business because, again, we know that you are our best chance of our communities recovering quickly. And if these programs aren't sustained, if these programs aren't supported, the rest of it is just details. So our priority is making sure that you as local managers have the resources you need. We will continue to connect you with state and national resources as quickly as they come online. We will use our managers Facebook group to share information. We will continue to do our weekly newsletters and sending out information as we learn it and know it and as it evolves. And we will continue to develop online training resources for our programs, our board members, and our small businesses as things happen. That is our promise and our commitment to you. So with that being said, I am now going to turn things over to Tara, and she's going to talk about the small business impact and what is the resources available to the small businesses, talk a little bit about the impact on those businesses and, what we have found out in the past few days. She has really been my right-hand gal in working with our partners, whether it's NDC, the National Development Council, has been a great resource. SBA, SBDC, our power companies, our local financial institutions, Synovus. We've had, great relationships with all these people. And again, that's what Main Street's about, right? All these relationships. And so we have been reaching out with our partners and having constant communication about what can we share. Please share it with us. We will share it with our programs. But again, I really liked this cartoon, and I really wanted to include it in the presentation because so much of what is going to be impacting our businesses is not just about social distancing, it's also about consumer confidence. And so we know that when consumer confidence soars, our businesses soar. And when consumer confidence falls, our businesses feel that impact. And what I mean by consumer confidence, it's not just, oh, I feel good today. It's, I know where my next paycheck is coming from. I know that I have money. So the reality is with small businesses, it's not just social distancing that's keeping people away, right? It's not like, oh, I can't go out in the public and I can't be around more than 10 people at a time. It's also, I don't know if I'm going to get paid next week. I don't know what my finances are going to look like. I don't get paid time off, all these different things that impact, our people in our communities. That is what is affecting consumer confidence. And that's what I mean by consumer confidence. So with that being said, Tara, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Again, my name is Tara Bradshaw. I'm the Economic Development Specialist with the Georgia Main Street team. So the question that we all have on our minds today is, what can we do to help our small businesses? And honestly, that question's on our mind all the time. However, with this COVID-19 pandemic and the accompanying economic crisis, we have been really thrusted and forced to really consider that immediately. So, one of the great things we're seeing is that our small businesses are really not putting their head in the sand. They're not shying away from this. They're changing the way that they operate. They are doing curbside pickup. They are appealing to their followers on social media to continue to support them and shop local. And that is wonderful. We're so glad that they're there. We all know that our small businesses, especially our downtown businesses, really make up the fabric of our community. And so we want to do everything we can to continue to support them and provide resources and advice or whatever that may be for them. So we're going to share some of that with you. We started on a webinar yesterday, and it's really geared for the travel industry. But they gave a quote that I think that is probably really pertinent to a lot of our businesses on Main Street. It said, the majority of travel-based businesses, retailers, restaurants, event producers and providers, sports teams, and millions of businesses will lose perhaps 50% or more in sales between March and June of this year. And guys, we all know our small businesses operate on small profit margins. And they're able to do a lot with a little, but those margins are small, and a 50% loss in sales could be detrimental to some of them. So we want to be thinking about ways we can help them. So let's talk a little bit about what our small businesses are seeing right now. We all have a new vocabulary. I don't know about you, but the two words social distancing, I never thought about putting together, and now they are a huge part of my life. And because of this new way of life, social distancing, we are seeing a tremendous decline in foot traffic in our small businesses, whether they be restaurant, retail, professional services. And this is out of necessity, right? We need to follow those guidelines and be very cautious. However, reduced foot traffic means no sales for these businesses. So that's what they're starting to see and have seen in the last couple of weeks. These businesses are starting to run into cash flow issues. And guys, this is it. When it comes down to running a business, their bottom line, how much cash they have to pay suppliers and employees and to keep the lights on is incredibly important to the businesses, and cash flow is diminishing quickly for a lot of our small businesses. We're seeing them having to furlough and reduce staff. Many of our restaurants are at half capacity or have shut their doors completely to outside traffic Same with our retailers and service industries. So those employees that are part of our community that are typically in downtown supporting other businesses, it's all a chain reaction, right? So those employees are not there right now, and they're starting to feel a personal financial burden. We're seeing a change in store hours. I mentioned that, some places are moving towards just curbside pickup or delivery only. A lot of our retailers are pushing online sales or over the phone sales, but some of them are really having to change when they open the doors, because simply they've got to be able to pay the bills while those doors are open. I talked to several retailers this week that are worried about shipping and receiving delays. So the inventory and supplies they have on hand, if that moves out, they're now worried about receiving future inventory. So we live in a global economy. Many of those suppliers are global suppliers, and so our retailers are going to have to be thinking about, okay, how do I get this inventory in that I have on order? Am I good for it when it gets here? So they may be running into some issues there. And then, like Jessica said, rebuilding consumer confidence. Right now, business, while they are focusing on doing everything they can to keep the store in operation, they simultaneously have to be focusing on the end game. What does their recovery look like from this? And how long could they get out of a cash-strapped situation? How long would it take them to get out of a situation like that? So again, we're going to work through a couple of resources we have. Jessica, if you want to jump in, we have two great programs at DCA, and so if you have a small business that is utilizing either one of these programs, they just made an announcement this morning about these programs. If you want to share, Jessica.
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things is that we want to make sure that at DCA, we are responding in real time to these needs and able to help and address some of the concerns. So DCA has two programs that would potentially impact our small businesses. The first one is the Downtown Development Revolving Loan Fund, which we call DDRLF. This is gap financing. It takes a position behind the traditional bank lenders, the 50-40-10 split. The thing is, everything right now, the conversation is geared at those who have current loans with us. So keep in mind, I'm not trying to teach you how to apply or use these. I'm talking purely to your community businesses that are accessing them already. And then we have SSBCI, which stands for State Small Business Credit Initiative. And what this program does is comes in and shores up the funding behind, guarantees the funding behind the traditional bank, again, making the lender more willing to lend to individual businesses. So if you have businesses in your community that have DDRLF loans or SSBCI guaranteed loans, and the businesses get into a financial tough spot, DCA is willing to consider deferring payments or doing interest-only payments for these existing loans for up to 3 months, so up to 90 days. So, this is something that if you have in your community businesses that have taken advantage of these resources and they get in a tough spot, it's good for them to know that they can defer they can ask to defer these payments, or that they can ask to do interest-only payments in the meantime until they have time to get back on their feet. Again, we realize that this stuff is tough. There we go. And we're trying to be as flexible as we can with our resources. So if a business wanted to ask to defer or to do interest-only payments, they would need to reach out to Cherie Bennett, whose contact information I don't have here, but we'll upload and include when we do the YouTube link, or Holly Hunt with SSBCI program at DCA. And they'll be able to kind of help guide you through that process and let you know what it looks like. Again, maybe this isn't something right this second. Maybe people haven't truly been able to gauge what the impact is right now. Maybe this is a request that comes in April or comes in May, because remember, you're only going to be able to do it once, and you're only going to be able to do it for up to 90 days. But this is an available resource for you guys that we wanted to make you aware of, that as an agency, we're trying to be proactive about. So with that being said, Tara, I'll turn it back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So another resource we want to share with you today is the U.S. Small Business Administration is now offering designated states and territories low interest federal disaster loans for working capital to small businesses. These small businesses will have to prove that they have suffered a substantial economic injury as a result of the coronavirus. So SBA typically offers this sort of disaster assistance for small businesses when there's been maybe a natural disaster like a hurricane. So it came out in the package last week from the president that SBA will be offering this for small businesses affected by COVID-19. So in order for the loans to be available in your state, a governor would need to go in and request that the SBA issue an economic injury disaster loan declaration. We're proud to say that as of last night, Georgia received a statewide disaster declaration from SBA, and this means that every small business in the state is eligible for this disaster funding. I know we have some of our partners from other states nearby on, so if you want to check and see if your state qualifies, we will have a link in our PDF. Georgia is one of 18 states that have made this declaration, and so the funding is now available, and we should see that moving forward very quickly in the next couple of weeks. Again, we don't really know, some small businesses may not know what they need right now, so, this funding is going to be available for quite a while, and so this may be, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 3 months out. They'll need to go and apply for this funding. So we're going to run through a little bit about what this means. So one of the things I mentioned is that typically during a natural disaster, SBA will go into a community and set up a disaster recovery center. However, with this funding for the COVID-19 assistance, this will be virtual only, meaning that all of the application materials, everything a small business needs to apply is online on SBA's website. So I encourage you to go check out the disaster loan page on the SBA website to learn more about that. One thing we did learn this week is that SBDC, the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center, will have staff at all 17 offices across the state available to help small businesses prepare to apply for this loan. So SBA will be doing this lending directly themselves. There will not be a traditional lender to process it. However, SBDC will help businesses prepare financial documents. So that's fantastic information. Now, that may be on a virtual setting, of course, because we are still practicing social distancing and we're not really sure how long that'll go on. So I encourage you that if you have a small business that needs help, and have them reach out to the SBDC, inquire about the SBA loan, and see what they can do to help them prepare documentation. So if you have a business that anticipates utilizing this fund, they will be required to show that they have experienced severe financial impact from the COVID-19 disaster, or pandemic. Some of the things that they will have to provide is 3 years of tax returns. This may be for the business or personal tax returns, depending on what type of business they are. If they have business interruption insurance, which is insurance that covers the loss of income that a business suffers because of a disaster, they will have to prove that and show if they've made any claims or received any payments. And then they'll also have to provide copies of a balance sheet and their profit and loss statement. So the date of determination for this is January 31st of this year through present day. And present day means the day that they apply for the loan. So they'll have to show a complete list of operation income and expenses from January 31st, 2020 through the day that they're applying for the loan. Then they'll have to go to the previous year, so go back to January 31st, 2019, and pull that same time frame and present that as well. So a lot of our businesses keep incredible track. They have great bookkeeping methods. We all know some that don't, that may need assistance. Some of our long-standing businesses that may need help with this, and that's where SBDC and us Main Street managers can come in and help them prepare for this. So let's talk a little bit about rates and terms. This disaster loan can be used for a variety of costs associated with business, everything from fixed debt to payroll, accounts payable. So SBA is offering 3.75% for small businesses without credit available elsewhere. So there's the caveat. The business cannot have access to credit available with any other institution. There's more information, again, on the website about what that means and what they have to provide to prove that they don't. So, for instance, they can't have an open line of credit with another bank. They have to meet some other qualifications. Also, interesting, they're providing this for nonprofit organizations as well. So nonprofits are eligible for a 2.75% rate. The loan terms will be determined on case-by-case situation. However, we have seen the maximum term is listed at 30 years. So again, that's going to depend on the creditworthiness of the business, but it could be where the business could get this low interest, long-term loan to help get some cash injected back into operations. So it could be tremendously helpful. There is no limit on the number of loans available in the disaster declaration area, but each business is only able to apply for up to $2 million. Another great program we saw this week come out was the Facebook Small Business Grant Program. Facebook is gearing up to take applications for this grant program in the next few weeks. And so if you'll check the bottom of the PDF slide, there's a link to sign up to get more information from Facebook. Essentially, they have designated or allocated $100 million in cash grants and ad credits for 30,000 small businesses in over 30 countries. So I would think certainly we have small businesses in our communities that could access this funding and be eligible for it and be a great candidate for it. So we encourage you to follow that link, get more information about it. These cash grants can be available for operational costs, payroll costs, and then, of course, connect you with your customers through Facebook advertising. So one of the most important relationships our small businesses have is with their creditors, with their personal bankers, their lenders, their credit card companies. And we, as Main Street managers, must encourage our small businesses to have these conversations with their creditors. If they are cash strapped, if they are looking towards a huge loss in March and they're going to see it again in April, the sooner they can start the conversation, the better. And I talked with several banking colleagues this week and had one, this is a quote from an email from a banker I talked to a lot. And he said, the most important thing to remember is to keep an open line of communication with your banker and do not put your head in the sand thinking the problem will go away. The sooner you have the conversation, the better, as there's more time to come up with a solution. Remember, we are all in this together. So these bankers and these credit card companies or whatever creditor you have, they have invested in this small business. So they have an interest in seeing this business successful as well. If we can encourage our small businesses to go ahead and have these conversations up front, I assure you that every bank in the state of Georgia and across the country is thinking about what are we going to need to do to support the small businesses that we want to see successful. So here's some ideas from our banking friends on what a small business can call and ask of their lender. One thing they can do is call and ask for a deferral of loan payments. If you have a small business that has an SBA 7A loan through a traditional lender, that lender can defer their payment for 90 days without prior approval. That means they don't have to call SBA, they don't have to fill out a form. They can give a 3-month forbearance on payments just to help alleviate some cash troubles. They can even banks may consider doing this on some of their in-house loans. So it does not hurt to ask your lender what they can do to help you get through this time. A deferral of payments for 3 to 6 months is not going to inject cash directly back in the business, but it's going to generate some cost avoidance. And so, really we got to look at both sides of that. Something else a small business can ask of their lender is a modification of the loan. If they can change it to an interest-only payment for a short period this year, that could potentially help, again, cash avoidance offset some other costs that they have in operation. And then another product many banks and other institutions offer is a line of credit. A short-term line of credit may be the answer for some businesses, and all they need to do is reach out to their lender and get that conversation started. So our team this week, we've been digesting a lot of information and discussing a lot about what small businesses can do. Again, one of our top takeaways, do not be afraid to call financial institutions and your credit card companies. One thing that we saw come out yesterday was that Capital One and Citibank are both publicly stating that they are here to help their customers, their small business customers particularly, and if they will just reach out, they are prepared to offer them some solutions. Again, this is not a resource they're just going to widespread offer, but if their customers reach out to them for assistance, they do have a plan in place to help them. Another great thing we heard or has come out of our conversations is that small businesses can use this downtime in a productive way. Maybe there is some maintenance or some changes in the business that needed to be made but couldn't because it would disturb operation. Now would be a great time to sort of implement those, depending on what type of business it is. Now's a great time to deep clean and do spring cleaning and get that old inventory out, or wipe down shelves or whatever that needs to be done. Again, we cannot say it enough. Our businesses need to be planning for the coming months. What are you going to do to recover and have a plan in place for promotion and reconnecting with your customers and getting them back in the door? Recovery will not happen overnight, and so we need to be thinking about the ways that we can push that along as a small business owner. And then now is a great time to learn skills that maybe you've been putting off or not having time to focus on because you're operating the business. So we're encouraging small business owners to really deep dive into social media and learn it. And maybe, if they're not doing, excellent bookkeeping, now's a great time to learn those type of things while there is some downtime. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica. And again, if there's anything that we can help with from a small business standpoint, please do not hesitate to reach out and give us a call.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tara. Okay, just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. So, with that being said, we're really at the point where we're wrapping it up. But, let's make sure we stay in touch. Please feel free to email us, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We've got, we will keep information up to date on our website. And if you haven't already, subscribe to receive our weekly newsletter. If you guys have any questions, now please is the time to ask them and share them with us. I noticed someone said that the CDBG quick links, they were having a problem with it, so I've actually uploaded that handout as well. And you can access that through your control panel. So you'll see a copy of today's webinar and the quick guide to CDBG disaster response PDF. That's both available for you. Thank you to Sadie, who has put out Cherie's contact info. If you need that right now, it's out there and accessible to you. Sadie, thank you for including that for us. And if you have any other questions, we're here for a few minutes. If not, I know that more questions will come up in, the upcoming days and weeks that we're kind of going through all this, and our team is here to help you and to support you. And for those of you who would like to share this, we will have a copy of this webinar uploaded to our YouTube channel, Georgia Main Street YouTube channel, by the end of the day with, copies of the notes and stuff like that. If you don't know how to find it, you can always look at our website here, georgiamainstreet.org. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, we've got a direct link to our YouTube channel from that homepage. So for those who aren't as familiar with Georgia and how to access all our resources, our website is a great place to do it through. And for our Georgia Main Street managers who want to share it, our YouTube channel will be a great way of sharing this with other people who weren't able to participate live or just might find this information helpful in the next coming weeks. So I don't see any more questions, which I think is probably a good sign, means we at least did a somewhat decent job today. So thank you guys again for joining us. Thank you, Tara, for leading us there at the end. And we appreciate you guys. Stay safe, wash your hands, and we'll talk to you soon.